Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to the Netherlands once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that you've seen me review a couple of beers from over the last couple of weeks and months. We seem to be getting a lot of their beers up here in Sweden at the moment for some reason, but I'm not complaining because they always turn out to be really quite nice actually, and I'm curious to see what this one has in store for us. So for this review then, we're going to have a look at some more Trappist beer. We're going to go back to the original Dutch Trappist brewery, which is of course Brouwerij de Konigshoeven, and they sell their beers under the name Trappe. So we're going to have a taste of the Trappe Isidor today, which comes in at 7.5% ABV, and this one is being described as a Belgian strong golden ale by both Untappd and Beer Advocate. I forgot to look at what rate beer we're calling it actually, but there's quite a few Belgian beers like this, a dark strong golden Belgian ale or a blonde strong golden Belgian ale and things. And there's a, it seems to be either dark or blonde in Belgium and then varying strength, so there's a bit of that kind of grey area where different styles and things fit in. But the main question should be whether or not it's going to be a good beer, and knowing Trappe, I think this one probably will be quite good. This particular beer was first introduced back in 2009 for the 125th anniversary of the Koningshoeven Abbey. And we got this one in Sweden on the 27th of March 2020 through the tillfälligt assortment, or small partiers, whatever you want to call it, in Systembolaget. But I'm guessing that since it's quite a well-known brewery, it probably has been through Systembolaget at various points before. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. And as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. Two shout outs to make in this video. First one to Dean at Dean's Beer Reviews. I know that he's reviewed this beer, and I'm pretty sure I watched it as well, because I didn't think I was going to be able to get a hold of this beer. I can't remember exactly what he said about the beer right enough, but I know that it was a positive review. Dean's got some very nice beer reviews. He's a very nice guy actually, very down to earth. I've never met him in person yet, but I've done a few hangouts and things with him over the years, but I need to try and meet him in person at some point with the other English guys at some point in the future. We are trying to sort out a meet-up in the next few kind of months once all this virus stuff goes away, but we'll see what we can work out there. But Dean's got some very nice beer reviews. Search for Dean's Beer Reviews here on YouTube and you can go and check them out. The second shout out is of course to the guys at the Dutch Craft Beer Collective, who are doing some very nice videos promoting Dutch craft beer. So there's Thomas Opent, Beer Geek Holland, and Dutch Beer Geek, Thomas, Remy and Gerben. Very nice guys who've messaged me and talked to me at various points. Most of their videos are still in Dutch. I've been trying to encourage them to do more English videos and introduce the world to Dutch craft beer. Thomas and Gerben do a number of English videos. They try, I think they do like one every week or one every 2 weeks or something like that, but Remy doesn't do them yet actually. But there's a great standard of craft beer down in the Netherlands. I first encountered that back in like 2014 when it was first just kind of starting up, but it's evolved a hell of a lot since then obviously, and I do want to get back down there and have a look at it. I'm trying to arrange to go down to the Netherlands probably at the end of this year once all the virus stuff is gone, or early next year. So I'm wanting to coordinate with these guys and see if we can sort out a beer festival. They did invite me to the Demolen Festival in September, but I think that'll probably be off because of the virus things, and it just wasn't going to work out because I've got a wedding over in the States at that time as well. But I will definitely connect with them at some point in the future. In the meantime though, make sure you check out their channels, and they've got some very nice reviews as well. As I say, the Dutch craft beer scene really is thriving at the moment, and I hope that I can get down there and check out more of those beers for myself sometime soon. Watch this space on that. That's something that's definitely going to happen within the next year or so, I would say. So yeah, check out their channels. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a look at this beer itself then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery and the Abbey on this one before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brouwerij de Konigshoeven before. No doubt there will be some more at some point in the near future. I've still got 4 or 5 beers I think that I can review from this brewery, and hopefully they produce more beyond that. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Dutch beers that I've reviewed for you. I will see about making one for all the Trappist beers as well, because I think that's quite a nice little playlist to have. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely, hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about both the Koningshoeven Abbey and the Konigshoeven Brewery. So the Trappe beers, as I've told you already, are produced by the Koningshoeven Abbey, which is known officially as Abdij onze Lieve van Koningshoeven. Probably pronouncing that wrong because Dutch is a very difficult language in terms of its pronunciation, but this was founded back in 1881 in Berkel-Enschot in Noord-Brabant in the Netherlands, and the Abbey is part of the Order of Cistercians of Strict Observance. So in the 1880s, the situation faced by the monastic orders in France was becoming more and more difficult, and the monks of the Mont des Cats Abbey in France feared that they were about to be driven from the country, and so they looked for an alternative place to stay. Much of this, I believe, was down to the policies of Napoleon and things like this, the secularisation policies that were going on. But Abbot Dominic Lassaise sent Father Sebastian Wyatt to the Netherlands, where he had many military contacts, and through his former lieutenant Antoine Arts and Father De Beer of the CMM brothers, he met a guy called Caspar Heuben, who owned some farm buildings known as the Schapschuit, which had been built by the Crown Prince William back in 1834 just outside of Tilburg. So Abbot Lassaise didn't originally want to found a completely new monastery, but he was persuaded by Father Wyatt, and then Heuben agreed to lease out this property to get started. So the early years of the monastery were very difficult at the Schapschuit, and the Tilburg brothers helped the monks a lot to establish the abbey, and a later abbot, Nevaerde Schweikert, expanded the farm, but this really didn't help the financial situation of the community. As the son of a Munich brewer, he then decided to establish a brewery back in 1884, and this helped the financial situation of the community greatly. In 1890, Dom Willebordus Verbruggen was appointed as the first abbot of the Koningshoeven, and he began the building of a new abbey after the status of the monastery was raised in 1891. This again threatened the financial position of the monastery, as did the establishment of two further refuge houses for religious communities from France. This was the Zundert and the Chameau community, and to solve these issues, a new abbot, Simon Dubuisson, was appointed. In 1931, the 50th anniversary of the abbey was celebrated, and then in 1937, the Koningshoeven Abbey was founded as the first Dutch nunnery. During the Second World War, though, several of the abbey's monks were executed by the Nazis, but after the war, a new abbot, Wilbrod van Dijk, was elected, and the abbey has been doing well ever since under the guidance of a few different abbots over time. So as previously mentioned, the brewery was founded back in 1884, and they own several bars in the area as well. But for a period their beers were brewed by Artois under licence, but then in 1980 they began brewing beer for themselves again, and in 1999, due to the difficulty that the ageing monks were encountering running the brewery, they established a limited liability company as a subsidiary of Bavaria Brewery, who are one of the big macro producers in the Netherlands, and they were to run the brewery. But this caused a dispute with the Trappist Association, who said it broke the kind of very strict rules, because with the Trappist Association, the beer has to be brewed within the walls of the monastery. But the Trappist Association basically said that this arrangement that they had with Bavaria was too commercialised. But in 2005, an agreement was made whereby the monks were going to take a more active role in the brewery, and they were once again allowed to display the official Trappist label. So these guys have been in and out of the Trappist Association a little bit, and you know, that's one of the things that I do worry a little bit about the Trappist organisations, because, you know, religion in Europe really is, in a lot of ways, Christianity at least, is in decline. So a lot of these kind of religious communities that are producing the beers are, you know, they need new people to keep doing it and stuff. So I do wonder if, you know, how long these Trappist breweries are going to last. And obviously we want them to last forever, because, you know, the beers that they're producing are great, and it's also, you know, part of the kind of cultural history of Europe and things like that as well. I'm not a religious person by any means. I'm quite a staunch atheist, to be honest with you. But yeah, it would be a shame to see the kind of Trappist monasteries disappear, because the monks have all died out and things like that. So hopefully that's something that La Trappe and the other Trappist monasteries can keep on top of. So yeah, that's your history of Brouwerij de Koningshoeven and the Koningshoeven Abbey. Some really interesting kind of points there, and you know, it's quite a lot of these Trappist monasteries have a very turbulent history. I think I've reviewed a beer from most of the Trappist breweries. The ones that I still have to do would be Spencer over in New England in America, and also Trefontaine from Italy, but they are the Italian one are notoriously difficult to get. I really need to see how I can get a hold of some of their beers actually. When I do manage to find a way, I'll probably just buy all of them and get all the reviews made. But yeah, Trappe are one of the easier ones to find. Apparently, the Dutch guys from the Craft Beer Collective were telling me that you can get these in the supermarkets. You can get all of the different ones in the supermarkets quite easily, but for us in other countries in Europe, these are a little bit more of a specialty, if you like. But yeah, if you want to learn more about Brouwerij de Koningshoeven and the de Koningshoeven Abbey, check out the brewery website in the description below. I think there's a few Facebook pages and things and Instagrams that you can follow, so that's worth checking out too. And of course you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to learn more about the different beers that they've done. I think there's a few kind of special beers that they release in the cafes and things like that, that you are only going to find locally, but when it comes to bottles, I think it's 10 or so different beers that that they produce. I think I've reviewed about 5 or 6 of them, and there's another 4 or so that I'll need to review for you at later dates, but we'll see about sorting that later. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then. So as I said to you, this beer is a 7.5% Belgian strong golden ale. We have to be careful about that. Of course, we're calling it a Belgian style beer when it's based in the Netherlands, and of course there's a little bit of rivalry there. But there you can see on the top of the bottle there is the kind of glass work for Trappe Trappist, and of course each of these beers has a different bottle cap on it. They've all got a different letter and a different colour basically. So I've got the bottle cap for the Triple and the Quad and things like that too, so I need to try and collect all the different bottle caps from Trappe. That would be quite nice. But like I said, this beer was brewed to celebrate the 125th anniversary. I think it's the 125th anniversary of the brewery rather than the Abbey. I think I told you lies at the start of the video, but it's a 125th anniversary beer. This one nonetheless. It didn't say on the website actually where they get the name from. I couldn't find that out, but maybe someone will let us know that in the comment section below. So if you do know, let us know that. But yeah, without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. I'm really curious to see what this one has in store for us. And we always need to be careful with these sort of Belgian type beers because they are bottle fermented. You can age them a little bit. But the problem is when you're doing beer reviews, sometimes they decide that it's going to be a good idea to explode on you. And you know, holding a master's degree in chemistry, I do like explosions, but not beer explosions, because that's a waste of good beer. But yeah, so look at this. I think this is going to be quite nice. That head is going to fade away over the next little while, of course, but we can have a look at the beer in the meantime. So yeah, as you can see with this one, if I hold the light up to this one, it's actually more like a kind of Belgian amber ale. I don't think there is such a style, to be honest with you, but this one, it's a lot darker than, it's almost kind of in between, like somewhere in the middle of a Belgian dark ale and a Belgian golden ale, Belgian strong. As I say, the style that this one was listed as, I think the exact words were a Belgian strong golden ale on Untappd and things, but it looks as if it will be quite a bit different than that. But in terms of colour, I would describe this one, this is kind of like a copper, yeah, sort of coppery mahogany type colour. The head on this one is about 1.5 fingers of a frothy, I would say creamy light beige head, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But you know, overall it looks, it does look pretty nice actually. I mean, it's a bit darker than I was expecting it would be, to be honest with you, but you know, it's the appearance of the beer doesn't particularly matter as long as it tastes good. You know, different colours you get out of these ones, it depends on how long the boil is, what type of malts you've used, and in Belgian beer they quite often like to add a little bit of sugar to the beer as well. So yeah, it can probably depend a little bit on that too. So yeah, let's have a look at the aroma then and see how we get on with this one. So yeah, straight away you get that lovely kind of doughy, Belgian-y, yeasty quality out of the beer. For me, it's an interesting one this. It's got a little bit of that doughy, yeasty, kind of brown bready quality to it. There's a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty thing in there. There's a good little bit of brown sugar, you know, a biscuity note, a little bit of a sweet caramel. You've got a few kind of almost butterscotchy type elements out of this. I think that might be diacetyl or whatever. So there is a wee bit of that in here. But you've got a lot of kind of candied fruits and things coming out of this beer as well. I mean, I really like how this goes together. The aroma of this is very, very nice. It's quite different from any other Trappist beer that I can think of having. It does, I mean, I think in terms of the styles, it probably is, aroma-wise, it probably is closest to a Dubbel, maybe, but it's a bit lighter and sweeter, if that makes sense, than a Dubbel might be, and a bit more bready and doughy, I think, as well. So yeah, as I say, you've got a nice kind of doughy, brown bready, yeasty quality to the beer. There's a bit of that kind of bread crusty note in there. It's got a wee bit of a kind of sweeter caramel, a little bit of a toasty brown sugar, and some kind of biscuity notes as well. You can pick out one or two kind of woody undertones to this beer, which is quite nice actually. So yeah, the malty and yeasty side of this beer is quite nice. You do of course get a little bit of that kind of very, you know, it's not so obvious in the darker beers right enough, but you do get a little bit of that kind of banana-y type quality out of this one that you would normally expect of, say, the blonde ale or the trip ales or the wit beers, I guess, as well. There is a wee bit of that kind of element to this one. Maybe a wee tiny bit of clove spice as well. You can pick that out at the front of the nose in my mind. So yeah, some really interesting notes going on in this one with the malt base, I think, and the yeasty characters, of course. So yeah, I really like how that goes together. Yeah, take a bit of time and just enjoy that. It does smell like quite a boozy beer. I mean, if I was smelling this, I'd probably think it was a bit heavier than it is. I mean, 7.5% isn't too bad for a Belgian beer. Most, you know, Belgian beer is known for being very, very heavy. I always wonder how the Belgians can sit in session about 4 and 5 of these and still wake up and do their thing the next day. But yeah, that's quite nice. On the hoppy side of things, there's a wee bit of earthiness in there. There's a wee bit of a lighter kind of grassy and floral note. As I've told you before, I always find the Belgian hops, I'm assuming that it's Belgian hops that will be in this. You know, the Belgian hops are a little bit more kind of earthy and herbal, like the English hops, but at the same time they've got the brighter grassiness you'd expect of German hops. Quite often though, I think in Belgian beers they use older hops not to kind of overpower the flavour, so that's another element you've got to consider here. But for this one, there is a wee bit of grassiness, you've got a little bit of the kind of herbal, earthy kind of thing going on, and you've got some nice fruity, juicy notes to this one too. So in terms of fruitiness, I'd say that this one's got quite a light, juicy sort of figgy note to it, some candied strawberry kind of elements as well, a little bit like the kind of Haribo Star Mix sweets. If you smell the inside of a bag of Haribo Star Mix, that's the aroma that you're going to get out of this one. So yeah, take a little bit of time and just enjoy that. It's got a little bit of a kind of phenolic, medicinal type quality to it as well in terms of the fruitiness, you know, those kind of datey, pruny sultana type notes as well. It's got a little bit of that. So take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we get on. This one is the Trappe Isidor, a 7.5% strong Belgian ale, brewed for the 125th anniversary of the brewery at the Koningshoeven Abbey in the Netherlands. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanje, Skål, Prost. Yeah, that's pretty nice actually. It's quite different from the other ones I've had from this brewery before. It is more of a kind of bready beer. The first impression I have of this one is that it is a little bit more kind of bready and sort of straight up, to be honest with you. Yeah, this is an interesting one because it really is kind of in between what you'd expect of one of the more blonde styles of Belgian beer and what you would expect from one of the more dark Belgian styles of beer. It really is this is one for me that really is straddling the line between these two beers. It's got elements of both, but definitely it's a more kind of bready, smooth sort of beer, this, rather than anything else, and I like that about it actually. I can see why Dean enjoyed this one as well. So this one is a little bit quirky compared to what you're normally used to from a Trappist beer. Of course, these guys do a few different things. So they've got a wit beer. They've also, but I mean, then you've got Engelsale in Austria, who do a Hefeweizen So these, I mean, these guys do a Bock beer, they do a pure, which I think is like a sort of paleo type thing, and they've got the wit beer and the Bock too, which is really interesting because they've got they've got a blonde, a double, a quadruple, and a triple, which is what you would expect from a Trappist brewery. But these guys do a few different kind of beer styles too, which is interesting. I want to get a hold of the Bock and review that at some point. I think that would be really interesting. But yeah, this one is nice. Let's try and break down the flavour of this then and see how we get on. So straight away with this beer, you get that lovely kind of doughy, bready yeast, you know, that blankets the middle of your palate. As you go further into the aftertaste with this one, you can feel the sort of, it's got a little bit of an almost grainy type quality that comes out of this one. You do feel this one drying out in the centre of your palate, which is nice. But if you go into the very centre of your tongue, you've got a sweet kind of caramelly note there, and as you move further out from that, it gets a little bit more biscuity, but kind of sitting underneath that is the doughy, it's the sort of doughy, brown bready kind of quality. And then as you go further out from the side of the palate too, there is a bit more of a kind of toasty, bread crusty kind of thing there, which is really interesting. And I think there's a wee bit of graininess sitting underneath that. There's a lot of different layers, I think, to the malt base and the yeasty side of things in this beer, because obviously in Belgian beer there is a bit of that kind of grey area, if you like, where, you know, where did the yeasts begin and the malts end, if you like. But yeah, I feel this beer, if you go to the front corners of your palate and move in a little bit, you do really get a little bit of a, there is quite a woody undertone to this one, and it's quite smooth towards the front of the palate, but then as you move further back on the tongue, it becomes more and more, it really becomes a little bit more kind of spicy and dry, if you like. There is a little bit of a grainy quality to this beer, I think, and that becomes, as I say, more prominent towards the back of the palate. But yeah, as I said, lovely kind of big doughy, bready, yeasty kind of note sitting in the middle of the palate, a little bit of a kind of, it's almost like it has a little bit of a, I don't think it's quite coriander, but there is a little bit of spiciness to that bready quality that the beer has. There's a little bit of a bread crusty dryness as you move further out. In the very centre of your palate, it's more caramelly and sweet, and then you've got a bit more of a kind of biscuity quality in this one as well. This is a really interesting beer. As I say, you've got some of the brown sugary elements that you'd expect of a quadruple, but then you have the more kind of bready things and lighter things that you would expect of the triple. So it really is one, I think this one kind of sits, it's sort of halfway between the strength of the double and the triple, I think, and it sort of straddles that line in some way. It probably is a kind of fight between a double and a triple in a way. That's probably a good comparison to make this beer. It's kind of straddling the line between double and triple in a lot of ways. So yeah. That's an interesting little bit of history as well that I'd be curious to know, is why is it that the double is brown, the triple is blonde, and then the quadruple is brown? Why, and you know, why is there not a quintuple that's blonde again? You know, that would be the kind of interest. That's one of the interesting things. But yeah, the flavour of this beer, I think, is pretty damn nice. It's quite different. You know, with this one, as I've told you before, the double, when it comes to Belgian beer, the double is one that I'm still to be wholly convinced by. I mean, for me, Belgian beer, it's always the blondes. I do enjoy a Belgian blonde, or a triple, or a quadruple. Those are the three Belgian styles that I would be most likely to go for, along with the Flanders Red, of course. I love a good Flanders Red. And the double, I'm still to be convinced by, and I think this beer does lean a little bit more towards that double end of the spectrum. So for me, I would probably say, if I had the choice of the Trappe beers, I'd be more inclined to either go for the, if I wanted something heavier, I'd probably go for the triple or the quadruple, both of which are beautiful. But if I wanted something lighter, I'd go for the blonde. I would be, this one for me, I'm not sure, there's nothing wrong with it, I mean, that's what I'm saying to you, but just in terms of personal preference, I'm not sure that if I had the choice of the other ones, I would necessarily pick this. But the malt base and the yeasty qualities in this are really nice. Let's focus on the hoppy side of this beer then. So yeah, hoppy side of things. Back corners of the palate, you get a little touch of earthiness. As you move further forward along the sides of the tongue, it becomes a little bit more herbal. You get some nice kind of floral notes on the front corners of the palate, then around the very front curve of the tongue, it's just a little bit more kind of light and grassy, and then behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you get that little oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. When you just go behind that fruity part of the palate as well, you get an almost a little bit of a kind of cakey, sort of sponge cakey type element to this beer, and you can feel some kind of brown sugary notes in there, a little bit of that toasted kind of thing. You get that from Maillard reactions. Whenever you toast something, you get these kind of brown sugary sort of type flavours out of it. You can really get a little bit of that kind of cakey type thing behind the fruity part of the palate. But let's focus on those fruity esters now. So yeah, when you take this beer in, it's actually really quite juicy. I mean, you've got a good mix between a sort of sultana type flavour with this one, and you know, these kind of different dried grapes. So really for me, it's sultanas that really dominate the fruity side of this beer. You've definitely got a little bit of a figgy kind of juiciness to it as well, and you've also got a wee bit of you've got a little bit of other things coming out in the aftertaste as well. I think this beer dries out, as I say, the further you go into the aftertaste, especially at the back of the palate. But the fruity side of this beer, yeah, sultanas in the beginning, then it gets a little bit more juicy and figgy, and as you progress, yeah, I think, yeah, it's a kind of figgy note that really kind of lingers with this one into the aftertaste. There is an element of that sort of phenolic quality that you can sometimes get from dubels as well. That sort of cough syrupy, medicinal type thing. There is definitely a little bit of phenol playing a role in the fruity side of this beer as well. It's like that sort of Cavonia, medicinal, cough syrupy type thing. There really is an element of that here in this particular beer. So yeah, it's interesting, this one. In some ways it actually reminds me of the Tint Meadow Trappist. This beer is somewhat akin to that. So if you like the Tint Meadow one, I think that you will quite enjoy this beer as well. Actually, they're not a million miles away from each other. I think the Tint Meadow one is actually a bit darker than this, if I remember right, and it is a bit more close to a Dubel actually. But I do like how this one has. You know, I do like how this one goes together. It's as I say, if it came to a choice between this one and the triple or the quadruple, probably I'm going to pick one of those over this. But as a beer on its own, and if you consider it as a sort of standard Trappist beer, this is pretty nice actually. I do like what this one has going on. I always enjoy a good sort of Belgian style beer, and it certainly lives up to that. It's just, this is quite a quirky one, and this review's turned into being quite a long-winded thing because it's a little bit different from what you'd normally get from a Trappist beer actually, so bear that in mind. But yeah, I like how this one goes together. There's quite a few things to consider about this beer. Let's talk about the mouthfeel then, the last thing we need to talk about. I'd say this beer is mid-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth. Yeah, carbonation is quite smooth. The mouthfeel overall, I think it's got a bit of wetness to it, it's got a bit of an oiliness, but at the same time it's got a wee bit of crispness too. There's a lot of different things going on in this one. In terms of the hoppy bitterness, I think we're talking maybe about, I think we're only talking about 20 IBUs or something with this. It's not going to blow the head off you in terms of the bitterness. The malt base and yeasty qualities, like I say, are quite thick and quite kind of bready almost. There's a wee bit of an almost spicy character to this one, and that dries the beer out a little bit as you go further into the aftertaste. There's some nice juicy fruits, a little bit of that phenolic kind of cough syrupy type thing to this beer as well, but you've also got a very nice juicy fruity side to that too. But yeah, it's quite a well balanced beer. It's quite smooth, quite drinkable, and I think stylistically it sort of does kind of straddle the line between, it's got a few triple type elements to it, but it's got quite a few Dubel type elements too, so it's one I think that really straddles the line between these two different styles in my mind. Let me know your own opinions about the style of this beer in the comment section below. It's always interesting to hear your guys' takes on these beers as well. But as it stands, it's an interesting beer, and if you want a kind of quirky Trappist beer, I think this is one that you definitely need to look at. I do want to try the pure, and I'll probably try the pure, the wit beer, and the bock at some point. I'd love to get hold of the bock, so hopefully that appears through the small partiers here in Sweden at some point too. But let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Isidor, a 7.5% Belgian strong golden ale of some description from Brouwerij de Konigshoeven and their Trappe range in Noord-Brabant in the Netherlands. A really interesting beer to review, this one, quite quirky compared to some of the other Trappist beers you're going to get, but I hope you've enjoyed my take on it as well. If you want a more concise review, go and check out Dean at Dean's Beer Reviews. He will give you that. Mine's a little bit more kind of thinking about things, and you know, it's a little bit less you know, it's basically a little bit less concise. It's more of a ramble, to be honest. If you want a more concise review, go and check out Dean at Dean's Beer Reviews, and he will definitely give you that. But thank you again for watching my beer reviews. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Trappe as well. You will see more reviews from these guys at some point soon. This one was the Isidor, a 7.5% Belgian strong golden ale, Belgian strong, I think it's just Belgian strong ale, to be honest with you. It's not quite golden, from Brouwerij de Konigshoeven and their Trappe range in Noord-Brabant in the Netherlands. Make sure you check out the guys at the Dutch Beer Collective as well. Go and check out Dean's Beer Reviews for a more concise review on this. I hope you've enjoyed my ramble on this beer, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, wait for more Trappist beer reviews. Skål.